Hey everyone, and welcome back to Made to Order a la Orden. I'm Chef Z, and today we're going to be talking about food and water in Cuba. For those of you who are traveling to Cuba and want to know what's the situation with the water and what's the situation with the food. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so that you don't miss any of these great videos. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, now there's a bunch of stuff that you guys have to know about the food in Cuba. To start off, the food is really good, but there are several places to have it. And one of the places you don't want to have food is that you don't want to buy any food from off of the streets because a lot of the hosts that I stayed with just warned me, just don't have the food off of the street. It's not that it's bad. It's just that your body just might have like a real adverse reaction to it because they may not have cooked it with, for example, like the same care or guidelines at some of the restaurants. Now, speaking of restaurants, there are two different types of restaurants in Cuba, the same way there are two different types of currencies. So you have your paladares, which are privately owned, and then you have the state-run restaurant. Now, as a rule of thumb, if you can eat at a paladar or a privately owned restaurant, definitely go this route because the food is a lot better and you just get to engage so much more with the locals. The state-run restaurants are usually, and you can kind of tell them apart because they are almost always either full of tourists or just empty. And you can just simply ask. And the other thing is, if you're staying in casa particulares or you're using Airbnb to stay at a casa particular, ask them for recommendations. Lonely Planet also has some recommendations, but a lot of those places have actually jacked up the prices based on what's in the book. And I'll go into a lot more detail about that in a separate video. But also, quickly, while we're on the Lonely Planet tip, is like that's a great place to kind of get some ideas to where to start, but there have been so many paladares popping up all over Cuba that it's definitely worth trying, and a ton of them, if not the majority of them, are not even listed in the book. So I do encourage you guys to ask and get recommendations from locals and just eat around. Now, be very, and I mean very careful about not getting sucked into a restaurant by a jinetero. And a jinetero is something that you find a lot of in the different cities. The bigger the city, the more jineteros there are. The more tourists there are, the more jineteros there are. The jineteros of Havana are relentless. And pretty much what a jinetero is, it's almost like a heckler. At least that's exactly what it means. Jinetero means heckler. There are people that, like, when you go to the bus stations or even cab drivers, they're locals who will like pressure you to going to dine at a certain place, and do not show up to a restaurant with a jinetero because it's going to annoy you and cost you more money. Just don't be afraid to say no and be firm and just walk away. Now, the other thing I will say about restaurants and paladares, if your Airbnb reviews recommend that you eat at your casa, do me the favor and listen to them, because the best food I have had in Cuba, hands down, has been in the casas. Like, my homegirl Norca in Santiago de Cuba gave me the best dish I had in all of Cuba. And my homegirl in Baracoa, in the casa that I stayed at there, Sophie, forget about it. That was oh so amazing. It was better than anything I had in any of the restaurants. Okay, now cost. How much does food cost? This range is really depending on where you eat, what you eat. So pretty much, if you're going to be dining in Havana, obviously it's going to be a lot more expensive than if you're dining in Baracoa or Trinidad or some of the other smaller cities. So I would keep that in mind. It really varies. Like, it's really hard to give you guys a range because there were some dishes that for two people, and I'm talking food and drink, was 6 CUC. 6. I'm not even kidding. And then other dinners that was like 60. So it really just varies, and it really just depends on what you're looking for. Also, another thing to keep in mind that kind of struck me, and I almost didn't know what, like, it was just so surprising, is that beef is also pretty hard to come by in Cuba. Like, I love my ropa vieja and I love my picadillo and my vaca frita, but outside of Havana, you actually don't even see ropa vieja on the menu, and you don't see a lot of beef dishes. You do see a lot of chicken dishes, a lot of pork, and are you ready for this one? A lot of lobster. There is a ton of lobster just all throughout Cuba, and that was one of the most exciting things about eating in Cuba, was just the amount of lobster. And I'm not even gonna lie, I have been inspired to make a lot of dishes, so I'll be sure to bring some of that for you guys later. Now, moving on to the topic of water. Water is a really big deal in Cuba. To start off, you don't want to drink running water. Like, you don't want to drink water on tap. Everything you want to do, you want to make sure that you drink bottled water. And I'm not gonna lie, in my whole entire trip, I spent the most amount of money on water, on bottled water. A lot of it had to do, for the fact that I was doing a lot of hiking. I was doing a lot of walking. It was really hot. It was the end of September. It was October. So the humidity was just kind of like sticking on you. I had my hydration pack, so it made drinking water fairly easily. So it's really important to stay hydrated, and it's important to stay hydrated with bottled water. So I think that's pretty much it for food and water. I am gonna look really quickly at my cell phone because I did take some notes. I just want to make sure that I did not forget anything. Yeah, no, so that's pretty much it. Also, really quickly, the cuisine does change depending on which city you do visit in Cuba. So if you go to Baracoa, there is Baracoan cuisine, and a lot of it's infused with coconut, and it's unlike anything you've ever seen before. And it's also mainly, if not mostly, seafood. It's definitely a culinary experience, and one that I do recommend that you guys do. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for coming back to Made to Order a la Orden. If you have any questions on this video, or if you have any questions about traveling to Cuba or anything you want to know, just hit me up on my social media or comment down below, and I'll see you next week when I have an all new video. Hasta la próxima.